Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back here to today's edition of Intuitive Angling. And man, I really appreciate you guys coming by the channel to watch the video today and spend a little time with me. Really appreciate that. And guys, today we're gonna have sort of a comprehensive little seminar on jig trailers. I'm gonna talk about how to rig them up, because not all jig trailers are rigged the same, and sort of explain to you guys the situations when you wanna rig one way over the other time. Talk a little bit about profiles, colors, and the actions and why you use different trailers as far as different colors and different styles of trailers, because jig fishing, it's a pretty complex technique. I would rate jerkbait fishing and jig fishing as the two most complicated techniques in the terms of the amount of variables involved in it, as far as different setups, different combinations of colors, skirt materials, trailers, weights, profiles, all that type of stuff. So I think it's gonna be a pretty good seminar for you guys. And guys, as we're doing this video, fall is right around the corner. I'd just like to invite everybody to please check out our Fish the Moment Fall Lake Map breakdowns up on the website. These are breakdowns I built for Fish the Moment. It's a really great resource to get some good spots on your favorite lake or a lake you've never been to. So I'll put that Fish the Moment Lake Map breakdown link in the description of this video, so appreciate that. Okay guys, let's talk a little bit about that. Talk about matching up your jigs to your trailers. And also, you guys probably heard me talk about, I got my new Blaukat Throwback Jig by Cumberland Pro Lures. They sold out the first day they were on Tackle Warehouse last week. Got them back in stock. If you guys want to order some, I'll put my Tackle Warehouse link in the description of the video for the Blaukat Throwback Jig here. And if the color you want is sold out at the time, it's usually about a week and a half, 2 week turnaround to get them, but you can still order them. So I really appreciate that. Okay guys, I have got 5 of my favorite trailers here. The ones that I use 99% of the time, probably 95% of the time. These are all plastic trailers. 5% of the time, guys, I do use the old style pork frog, like the real pork frog under certain conditions. But for about 95% of my fishing, it's the 5 different trailers that we're gonna talk about here. So I'm gonna talk a little bit about how to rig them and modify them. It's gonna be a juicy jig fishing seminar here. So first of all, guys, let me show you what is my favorite trailer to use. This is a Zoom Big Salty Chunk, guys. This is probably my favorite trailer. This is sort of my go-to. I've caught so many big ones on this over the years that you just can't go wrong. It looks exactly like an old pork frog. This is looks like the old Uncle Josh #1 pork frog, but it comes in a lot more colors than the pork frog does. So first of all, before I show you how to do this, I want to show you a little modification what I do. Now, how I do on most all my trailers that I hook on the hook is I come on the end here and I'm going to cut a little piece of it off like that to make that thinner. So you can see I've cut some of that off of there. That way you got more hook penetration. And then I just like to sort of round off these corners a little bit with some scissors. So I'll come in like that and just sort of take that edge off, make them a little bit more uniform. And then I'll just take it and I just hook it straight on the back of the jig like that. And also by taking some of that meat off there, it also gives a little bit more freedom of movement there. But guys, this combo right here, I've caught so many big fish on it. And also guys, that one little trip I'll show you on the Blaukat Throwback Jig, always cut a little bit of the strands off, sort of make them uneven. You don't want like a real uniform look. So sort of make them sort of gnarly looking like that. Makes the jig look a little bit more realistic in the water. These Blaukat Throwback Jig, guys, they're live rubber. They're one of the few live rubber jigs on the market, and they just come alive in the water. If you look at that, they really have a lot more lifelike action in the water over silicone. So you guys really like that, but that's probably my favorite setup. Okay, the next deal is the Zoom Super Chunk. Now this is the Big Salty Chunk here, Zoom Super Chunk. Now the Zoom Super Chunk's a little bit different. It's got a dog ear on it and you can rig it 2 different ways. And I'm gonna show you the 2 different ways that I rig it. Now the first way I rig it is the same way. I'll just take it and cut that little end of it off like that. And then I'll put it on my jig. These colors are not necessarily the ones I go to with the combos. I'm just showing it. But when the Super Chunk like this, since it's a longer trailer, this is a trailer I use for if I want a really big profile. I'll use the Super Chunk because it's quite a bit longer than the Big Salty there. And so if I want a large profile jig, this jig right here is close to 5 inches long when you got the Big Salty Chunk on there. Doesn't that look good, guys, when you trim it up there like that? I'm telling you, bass love this thing. But this is sort of my big fish setup. When I'm after big fish, this is the setup I usually use, flip and fletted cover early in the year, like in the pre-spawn. But another way that you can rig it is by threading it on, which a lot of you guys probably already know this, but if you guys are new to jig fishing, I'll show you the difference. But instead of threading it on the end, I'm going to run it through, and I'm gonna come through all the way on the trailer, and then I'm gonna secure it with the little keeper we have here on the throwback jig. And this is going to be the way it looks with the same trailer here. Trim that. And also guys, when you hook it like this, since it is a sort of profile, sometimes you got to cut off more of the skirt. But here's the difference in the two as far as the length goes. The same trailer, but it's just hooked up a little bit differently there. So that's two different ways to do it. And I'll use this compact model. When I'm using the Super Chunk, this is usually how I fish it. I usually thread it on because I sort of like that compact profile. It's a little bit more versatile with it. Now, if the fish are a little bit more finicky, say they're a little bit harder to catch, you know, don't want to bite as much, that's when I'll downsize to this Super Chunk Junior. Now here's the difference of the two. Here's the Super Chunk and here's the Super Chunk Junior. And when I'm using the Super Chunk Junior, I'm almost always threading it on to create a very small profile. So I'll thread it on like that, and I've got a nice little tidbit here. And obviously I usually, you know, I'll trim the skirt back, you know, quite a bit on something like this to make it shorter. But this makes it even more of like a little compact finessey thing. This is a really good way to catch them. You know, if you have spotted bass in the lake, or if you're fishing a lake that's got a little bit cleaner water or just tougher fishing, you know, this little bitty tidbit like there will get you a lot of bites. Now, the other thing, guys, the last one that I use here, or no, I got actually two more that I'm talking about. Let me talk about one more, and then I'll talk about the third one here. Here's a little, a tidbit I'll just throw you guys out there. I still use the old Craw. This is the old Jean LaRue Craw. Zoom makes one, but I don't think it comes in this color, but you get you a black and chartreuse Craw with that black and chartreuse Blaukat Throwback Jig. And guys, I usually bite off just a little bit of it. And guys, this combination right here, this used to be Tommy Biffle's favorite color for flipping back in the day. And it's still one of mine. I've caught so many good ones on this color combination. But this black and chartreuse jig with that black and chartreuse skirt on there like that, that'll get you some bites right there in off-colored water. Really, really good color for off-colored fishing conditions. I'd really cut that one a little bit too short there. That's one of my favorites. Now finally, guys, we'll talk about using a curl tail trailer. This is the Zoom Ultra Vibe Magnum speed craw. And the thing about a speed craw is when you use, if you guys, a lot of people that fish jigs nowadays, the modern jig fishermen guys, they go to the curl tails like this. But the old school jig masters, most of the old school jig masters I know still fish the old chunk type trailers, but a lot of guys like these. And the time that you want to use this type of a trailer here, which a Rage Craw or the Zoom Magnum Speed Craw like that, is when you need a little bit more action and those fish are a little bit more aggressive. So when I'm using the Magnum Speed Craw or something like that, I'm usually using it on a heavier jig, because when you put the Magnum Speed Craw on, it's going to significantly slow the fall down with those flappers. So I usually use a little bit heavier head, usually rig it just like that. And most of the time when I'm fishing some type of a flapper like that, I'm using like a 5/8 ounce jig, and I normally use this in cleaner water because the action of the tails, I want that visual strike attractant of the action of the tails. So for example, probably my favorite situation for having some type of a tail on it there is if I'm fishing a jig, like if I'm pitching a jig to a rocky bank, or pitching a jig to a riprap bank, or, you know, any type of a steep rocky bank. That's when I really like that type of a trailer, because it really comes through those rocks good since the fall slowed down. And also another time that I'll use that is occasionally I'll go to a big 1 ounce jig. And if I'm flipping like heavy cattails or reeds like in Florida, this flapping tail like this, like in a June bug or a black and blue with a 1 ounce jig, is a really good way to get a reaction strike. So anyway, guys, that's a few good jig tips. I think if you try some of that stuff, this is the stuff that works for me. This is how I fish my jigs, and I think it's going to work for you guys too. So we'll talk later.